they tried to bury him in a closed room, hoping, I guess, that institutional silence would just muzzle his message. But Special Counsel Jack Smith just dropped a political and legal bombshell on his critics.
Yeah, and this wasn't some quiet legal maneuver. Not at all.
No, this was a strategic statement. It was a statement of just absolute confidence, and it was delivered under duress, which I think just makes it reverberate even more.
Oh, absolutely. And we are talking about the highest standard of the court.
Proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
That phrase alone is, well, to put it bluntly, it's the ultimate legal flex. It was a really fascinating and I think a highly leveraged moment.
So Smith was compelled to give testimony to the House Oversight Committee.
Yeah.
This is a setting that, a lot of people expected would be used to attack him, to undermine his credibility.
Sure, accuse him of political targeting, find some flaw in the procedure. That was the whole game plan, it seemed.
Exactly. And instead, his opening remarks became this declaration of his own professional certainty.
So our job here is to really extract the essential nuggets from the limited information we have about that closed-door statement.
Right, because we only have key excerpts. But we can pair that with the broader context of the indictments.
And we need to dissect what Smith explicitly claimed he has already proven. And maybe most importantly, analyze the political thinking behind trying to keep his testimony secret.
And why that strategy seems to have just completely backfired on his critics.
Yeah, and for you to understand the weight of this, you have to get the context here. This was a conflict zone.
It wasn't a neutral forum.
Not at all. It was delivered behind closed doors because, according to reports from Democratic members who were there, certain Republicans just did not want the American people to hear Smith's legal reasoning, unfiltered.
They wanted to control the narrative.
Cherry-pick quotes, leak accusations, get their story out before Smith could present the foundation of his case.
So Smith's action, even in this private room, it really stands as a direct challenge to that whole effort, that whole politicization of the Justice Department.
It does.
Okay, let's unpack this right now, because the legal weight of his opening argument in that room it's just staggering.
It is. He went straight to the core of the election interference case, and he introduced a term that just fundamentally shifts the whole conversation.
Away from the politics and straight toward judicial certainty.
That's right. I mean, the language he used, it signals just absolute professional confidence. The quote that really defines the strength of the government's position is this. Our investigation developed proof beyond a reasonable doubt that President Trump engaged in a criminal scheme to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election and to prevent the lawful transfer of power.
Okay, wait. I have to pause here.
Yeah.
That's a declaration of victory. That's not an opening statement.
Right.
I mean, most prosecutors are so careful. They would never use that kind of language before they've even picked a jury.
Oh, it's virtually unheard of in these kinds of high-stakes political trials. To claim you've developed proof beyond a reasonable doubt before the defense has even said a word.
It's a huge risk.
It's a calculated risk, for sure. But it's one you only take when you genuinely believe the evidence is just overwhelming. And we really need to ground this in legal reality for you listening. This is sort of the aha moment when you look at the hierarchy of legal standards.
Yeah, let's lay out the difference, because that term, proof beyond a reasonable doubt, we hear it all the time in movies and TV, but its actual legal weight is just immense.
It really is. So when a prosecutor first starts an investigation or, seeks an indictment, the standard they need to meet is probable cause.
Okay.
And you can think of probable cause as just a reasonably strong suspicion. The evidence suggests a crime likely happened and the person you're accusing likely did it.
So it's the bar you have to clear just to get things rolling. For warrants, for arrests, for bringing charges.
Exactly. It's a lower kind of threshold bar.
So if the government had just come out and said, we have probable cause, that would have been totally normal. Just a procedural statement to get the case into court.
Completely normal.
Yeah.
But Smith just leaped. He leaped entirely past that initial bar. He's asserting that the evidence they've already gathered has satisfied the standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
And that's the gold standard.
That's the gold standard of American criminal law. It is the heaviest burden the state has to meet. It means the prosecution has to eliminate any and all reasonable doubt in the minds of the jury about the defendant's guilt.
And if even one juror has a reasonable doubt,
they have to acquit. The whole thing is over.
So Smith is really communicating two things here at once. First, he's confident in the facts. The evidence isn't just suspicion. It's way beyond that.
Right.
And second, he's sending this really powerful psychological message. to the defense, to the public. He's saying, this is not a weak, politically motivated case. We have already cleared the conviction hurdle.
And the tactical implications of that are just profound. It shifts the whole dynamic of the case.
How?
Well, when a prosecutor makes a claim like this, they're signaling that the factual foundation is, comprehensive. It's incredibly detailed.
It forces the defense to actually deal with the evidence.
Exactly. They have to move beyond just general political accusations and address the specific, overwhelming nature of the evidence itself. It puts this immediate, immense pressure on them to not just argue innocence, but to actually create genuine, reasonable doubt where the prosecution already says there is none.
But isn't there a danger there for him? I mean, strategically.
Yeah.
If you come out this strong, and then for some reason you fail to get a conviction, the institutional damage is even greater, isn't it?
Oh, for sure.
So why take that risk unless you believe the evidence is truly ironclad?
And that is precisely the point. You only make this kind of assertion when you believe that failure is, structurally impossible because of the sheer volume and the quality of the evidence you have.
So it's a deliberate attempt to manage expectations.
Manage expectations, yes. But more importantly, to define the seriousness of the charge. Smith isn't just saying, hey, this is an important case. He's saying, this is an undeniable case.
And that tactic, even in a closed room, it just redefined the entire political argument, didn't it?
Completely. The critics wanted to talk about process and bias. Smith just insisted on talking about facts and the conviction standard.
Yeah, that claim, it acts like an integrity shield. It immediately shifts the whole analysis from questioning the prosecutor's motivation, which was the whole point of the hearing, to questioning the defense's capacity to counter the facts.
Right. It creates this narrative framework where any attempt by the defense to just focus on procedural stuff or political motives, it can be dismissed as a deflection, a distraction from the actual evidence.
So Smith is telling the public and potential jurors,
Yeah.
we didn't bring this case because of who he is, we brought it because of what he did, and we have the highest standard of proof to show it.
And that confidence is designed to just survive all the political noise that's surrounding the case.
This level of detail, this kind of legal reasoning, this is what we're here to unpack. And his claim of having proof beyond a reasonable doubt, it connects directly to the actions he then described. He didn't just leave it as some abstract legal idea.
No, he had to ground it immediately in the narrative of January 6th.
He had to.
The legal standard only has meaning when you apply it to the actual concrete actions that are being alleged. And Smith, he consistently frames the Jan 6th attack not just as a result of political rhetoric, but as the culmination of an explicit criminal plan.
He called it an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy. And critically, he said it was fueled by lies.
Right, lies that were specifically targeted at obstructing what he keeps calling a bedrock function of the U.S. government.
Let's spend a minute on that, on what that bedrock function actually is.
Yeah.
Because it's so important.
It's the core of the institutional damage that's being alleged. The bedrock function Smith is talking about is that non-discretionary constitutional process, collecting, counting, and certifying election results.
Which all culminates in the peaceful transfer of power.
The peaceful transfer of power. And that function is fundamental because, without it, the entire democratic structure just collapses into chaos.
So by framing the scheme as an assault on the mechanism itself, the physical and legal machinery of certification Smith elevates the criminal charge. It's not just fraud, it's an existential attack on the government.
Exactly. And the indictment goes even further than just the initial lies. Smith made the very detailed claim that Trump and his associates exploited the violence on January 6th.
And this is the crucial leap, right? From just general political agitation to a calculated criminal execution.
Yes. The argument is that the violence wasn't just some coincidence that happened to benefit them. The chaos itself was allegedly weaponized.
It was used as leverage.
Mm-hmm. The rioters breached the Capitol, they interrupted the certification process, and at a critical moment, the alleged criminal scheme kicked into a higher gear to use the delay that resulted.
So it shifts the whole perception from a protest that got out of hand to a scheme that was capitalizing on a manufactured crisis.
Exactly. And this is where the investigative details become so crucial. The kind of information that turns a circumstantial case into one with direct evidence.
Smith drilled down into specific, tangible actions that happened during the chaos.
He did. He revealed the investigative trail that leads right to the core of the obstruction charge. The source material talks about the specific criminal action alleged that Trump and his associates, tried to call members of Congress in furtherance of their criminal scheme, urging them to further delay certification of the 2020 election.
This wasn't just a general appeal, then?
Not at all. This was targeted, real-time lobbying intended to block the constitutional process while it was happening.
And the fascinating part is the process Smith mentioned in that closed-door testimony, the deep dive into the data. His team used highly specific records, telephone billing records.
In what they called the Arctic Haze investigation.
Arctic Haze. I mean, that detail is so powerful because it moves the case from witness testimony to objective, verifiable data.
Well, the name itself, Arctic Haze, it implies this deep, complex, almost cold case style of forensic data analysis. And when Smith brings up telephone billing records, he's talking about hard data.
Right.
Data that's almost impossible to refute. You have the time, the duration, the location of specific calls. This lets the prosecution map out the alleged conspiracy in real time. It shows who was calling whom and when.
Targeting members of Congress while the certification was literally under physical siege.
And if we elaborate on what those Arctic Haze records could prove, it moves beyond the question of just what was said.
It establishes intent and coordination.
Precisely. So for instance, if a rioter breaches the Capitol at, say, 2:15 p.m., and a core figure in this alleged conspiracy places a call to a specific member of Congress at 2:17 p.m., urging a delay.
The billing record establishes a direct causal link.
Yes. It shows that the scheme wasn't frozen by the violence. It adapted. It accelerated, using the newfound chaos as an immediate, real-time excuse for obstruction.
So it transforms rhetoric into actual evidence of a coordinated criminal enterprise.
An enterprise that exploited the breakdown of order, and the fact that Smith chose to reveal the name of this investigation, Arctic Haze, in a closed-door session with people who were hostile to him.
It suggests a very high degree of confidence.
Yeah, confidence that this data trail is conclusive. It's almost like a warning shot, like we have the receipts.
It really speaks to the methodical, non-political approach he insists his team took.
Right. They weren't hunting for political talking points. They were mapping metadata.
They used objective data to diagram the exact moment and the mechanism by which the alleged criminal objective was pursued. It just moves the whole conversation away from abstract claims of fraud and into the very specific, detailed execution of obstruction.
And then he pins the ultimate responsibility for that strategy down with one really punchy clarification.
I didn't choose those members that were called. President Trump did.
That emphasis on intentionality is so key to securing a conviction. It just cuts through any potential defense claim that the calls were random or, that staff members were just acting on their own.
He's removing all the layers of ambiguity.
He is. He's asserting that the targeting of specific members of Congress, presumably the ones they thought were most influential or, vulnerable to pressure, was a deliberate, calculated action resting solely on the former president.
It asserts that the decision to make those calls while the Capitol was under attack was strategic. It was purposeful.
And it links the head of the alleged scheme directly to that critical moment of obstruction.
So if the calls are proven by the Arctic Haze data, and the choice of whom to call is pinned directly on the former president, well, the argument for intentional criminal obstruction becomes extremely difficult for the defense to counter.
Absolutely. That combination of objective data showing coordination, plus the assertion of deliberate high-level choice, is designed to meet that proof beyond a reasonable doubt standard. It's the difference between, hearing a rumor of a plan and seeing the blueprint, the timeline, and the signature on the order.
And Smith concluded this part of his testimony with a necessary humanizing element. Acknowledging the law enforcement who defended the Capitol, he described them as heroes, patriots, and the very best of us.
And that's a crucial narrative device. By praising the law enforcement who defended the institutions, Smith reinforces this theme of institutional integrity versus criminal action.
He noted that they didn't just defend a building.
No, they defended the principles that define the United States. It frames the entire prosecution as an act of institutional defense. It's about ensuring that accountability is enforced for those who attack the democratic process, regardless of their political position.
And that dedication to process and the rule of law is the narrative that Smith is wielding against all the political attacks.
It is.
Which, that focus on accountability leads us directly into the second major case Smith's office is handling.
Right. The closed-door testimony, it wasn't just a single-issue brief. Smith reminded everyone that his confidence in the evidence extends to the classified documents case.
We transition now to the Mar-a-Lago evidence.
Right. And while Smith might not have used the specific proof beyond a reasonable doubt language for the documents case, the source material used the slightly different term, powerful evidence. The assertion of confidence is identical. The quality of the evidence is clearly deemed exceptionally high.
So what was the foundational claim about the documents?
Smith stated the investigation developed powerful evidence that showed President Trump willfully retained highly classified documents after he left office in January 2021.
And we have to define the legal hinge there. Willfully retained.
Yes, that is the key that differentiates a criminal retention from just, some administrative error.
Let's really get into that distinction, because the defense frequently argues this was just a records dispute, not a criminal act. What does willfully retained legally imply?
Well, willful retention means the prosecution believes they can prove the defendant acted knowingly, intentionally, and with bad faith or conscious disregard for the law.
So it's not just forgetting to return a document.
No, it's an active choice to hold on to it despite your legal obligations, and crucially, despite being asked specifically by federal authorities to return them.
So if it were just negligent, a mistake by a moving company or something, it'd be a different story.
It would likely be a civil or administrative matter. Willful retention implies criminal intent.
And the evidence Smith cited, the specific, frankly, shocking locations of the documents, that's what the prosecution is using to prove that willful intent.
Absolutely.
I mean, you don't accidentally leave highly classified information next to a pool float.
That's the scandal of storage, and it speaks directly to the alleged willful disregard for security protocols. And Smith was sure to highlight the specific locations mentioned in the source material, which the public finds both outrageous and, easy to remember.
We're talking about documents stored at his private social club, Mar-a-Lago, which is, by its very nature, an insecure location.
Completely insecure. It lacks the required physical and procedural safeguards you need for handling classified information.
And the specific locations cited are what make the charge just stick in the public consciousness.
Right. In a bathroom.
A bathroom.
A ballroom. And in areas where events and gatherings took place, these are not secure storage rooms.
No. This is where the physical evidence serves as what feels like irrefutable proof of intent.
It does. Highly classified documents, information that could compromise national security, sources, methods, intelligence operations were allegedly found in common areas.
The mention of the bathroom and the ballroom, it just provides this visceral image of the profound security breach.
The analytical takeaway is that these locations are just completely incompatible with even the slightest care or concern for security.
So if the defense argues it was a mistake, the prosecution can just point to the bathroom.
Right.
Why would a mistake land classified intelligence next to a toilet? The location itself becomes the evidence that proves the willful disregard part of the crime.
Absolutely. I mean, imagine a jury instruction that says, if you believe the defendant stored documents vital to national security in a public-facing ballroom where non-cleared staff and club members gathered, you may infer that the retention was willful and not accidental.
The physical context just removes the possibility of some benign administrative error.
It does. And a highly classified document is meant to be handled in a SCI, a sensitive compartmented information facility.
Right.
Storing it in a bathroom at a social club is about the starkest contrast you could possibly imagine. It makes the gravity of the alleged breach impossible to ignore.
We should also touch on the potential nature of these documents. I mean, we don't have specifics, but highly classified documents means information that, if it got out, could cause grave or exceptionally grave damage to national security.
That context is so vital. We're not just talking about embarrassing information.
No, we're talking about information that risks lives or major national security interests.
And the alleged risk wasn't theoretical. It was immediate and pervasive because Mar-a-Lago is an environment with, transient staff and non-cleared international visitors. The very nature of the social club environment, which is cited in the charges, it demonstrates a comprehensive failure of security by the person allegedly retaining the documents.
And now let's get into the political drama that's wrapped around all this evidence. Because there's a huge controversy surrounding the public knowledge of this evidence, which ties right back to the secrecy the GOP critics tried to impose on Smith's testimony.
Yes, the suppression theme, it extends to the document report itself. Democratic Representative Jamie Raskin noted that Smith's second report on the retention of classified documents should be released. He called its delay absolutely aberrational.
And that's significant. So the public knows about the initial evidence that led to the indictment, but Raskin is suggesting there's a second volume, a follow-up report.
Yes, a detailed follow-up report that might contain further analysis or evidence about the handling and classification of the documents, and it's being intentionally withheld from the public.
So the implication, according to Raskin's commentary, is that the motivation is one of fear.
If the reports from previous special counsels, like Mueller and Hare, were made public, why is this material being treated differently?
Right. If this second report contains information that's just as damning or even more damning than the initial revelations,
then political forces could be trying to delay it or bury it because they recognize the devastating political consequences of its release.
So this suggested intentional withholding. It just reinforces the whole narrative that the facts are so powerful that the opposing political strategy has become one of active information suppression.
It does.
And this brings us right to the integrity of the process itself, which is where Smith launched his preemptive strike against the political critique.
Right. He knew that the core mission of his critics in that closed room was to paint him as a partisan operative.
A political hitman for the other party.
And that political attack is the primary defense strategy, at least in the court of public opinion. If the defense can successfully argue that the prosecutor is biased, then every single charge, no matter how factually supported it is, loses credibility with a part of the public.
So Smith had to address this head-on.
And he did so, I think, masterfully by deploying this shield of nonpartisanship.
His clear stance wasn't a denial of political interest. It was a rerouting of responsibility.
That's a great way to put it. He said, the decision to bring charges against President Trump was mine, but the basis for those charges rest entirely with President Trump and his actions as alleged in the indictments.
Which is a classic legal strategy, right? I am not the story, the crime is the story.
Exactly. Smith is asserting that his role is just that of a professional interpreter of facts and law. The cause of the indictment, in his view, is solely the defendant's alleged criminal conduct.
And this allows him to maintain a position of detached professionalism while still being fiercely assertive about the validity of the charges.
Right. But the strongest point of his defense, the part that directly rebutted the whole GOP narrative of election interference, was the hypothetical test he used.
The test to prove his objectivity.
That hypothetical test was the core of his integrity argument. He said he made his decision without regard to Trump's political association, beliefs, or candidacy.
And then he made the critical assertion that he would have made the exact same decision if the defendant had been a Democrat or a Republican.
And that statement just directly addresses the political critique, doesn't it?
It does. He's basically saying, you're focused on the letter R next to his name. I'm focused on the obstruction and the retention of secrets, which are crimes no matter which party commits them.
It's a very elegant way to neutralize the core accusation. It forces the conversation back to the rule of law.
Right. Smith asserted that his decision was based entirely on what the facts and the law required, and he cited the rules of law as the foundation of his entire career.
And he's making a distinction here between two types of justice, which is really relevant for you, the listener, to understand.
Okay.
There's outcome-driven justice, which pursues a political target no matter the rules. And then there's process-driven justice, where the prosecutor follows the law precisely, and the outcome is just the result of that faithful adherence.
And Smith is claiming he is firmly in the latter camp.
And the sources we have, they paint a picture that's designed to strongly reinforce Smith's character and to contrast it with the opposing political narrative.
The sources supporting Smith describe him as a sensational and honorable public servant.
A choir boy, a Boy Scout, fiercely committed to the rule of law. And this language is highly deliberate. It's meant to emphasize his perceived lack of political motive and his devotion to professional procedure.
And that characterization is then placed in stark opposition to the narrative that the Department of Justice was allegedly corrupted by Donald Trump, that it became partisan, political, and untrustworthy during that administration.
So we have to frame these as two intensely competing narratives that are at play right now in the public sphere.
Okay.
The narrative from Smith's supporters is that he represents the DOJ at its most principled, restoring integrity after a period of alleged political pressure.
And the counter-narrative from his critics is that he is the culmination of political bias, using the DOJ's authority for partisan ends.
Exactly. And Smith's closed-door testimony served as his opportunity to champion that first narrative, to insist that the investigation is about ensuring accountability for those criminally responsible, regardless of their political stature.
For you listening, this is really the crux of the institutional integrity debate in America right now. Can the legal system remain impartial, fact-based, and process-driven? Or will it just inevitably collapse into a tool of political warfare? Smith's testimony is a massive declaration in favor of the first option.
And that dedication to process, combined with his overwhelming confidence in the evidence, is precisely why the Mangier political strategy of secrecy was such a profound failure.
Let's pivot to that now, the backfire. The GOP took a calculated political risk by demanding this testimony be held in a closed deposition, not a televised open hearing. What was their motivation, according to the sources?
The motivation, which was confirmed by ranking Democratic member Jamie Raskin, was all about information control and protection.
Protection of their client.
Right. Raskin said that Chairman Jordan and his colleagues made an excellent decision, but only excellent for the political defense. Raskin's analysis was stark. He said if Smith had testified publicly, it would have been absolutely devastating to the president, all the president's men involved in the insurrectionary activities of January the 6th.
So that suggests that the fear wasn't that Smith would lie, but that he would present the facts.
The very facts that meet the standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
In a forum that the American public would watch and understand.
Precisely. The facts Smith presented, the explicit link between the criminal scheme and the violence, the phone records, the targeted pressure, the absurdity of the document storage, they're all so powerful and fact-based and, frankly, visually resonant.
And airing them publicly would have completely undercut the witch hunt narrative.
So the strategy was classic information warfare. Close the doors, control the narrative flow, and then release a highly edited, spun version of the transcript later. They wanted to bury it.
But the immediate media reporting on Smith's powerful opening statement meant the word got out instantly anyway.
It did. And now we have two distinct, competing media campaigns trying to shape how the public understands what happened in that room.
Okay, so on one side you have the Mangier campaign.
Right, led by congressional leaders like Jim Jordan. Their strategy is reactive. They're trying to spoon-feed information, release the full transcript eventually, but hope the details get lost in the noise.
And make sure no video or dramatic public presentation is ever allowed.
Because they have everything to hide. Their campaign is focused entirely on attacking Smith's credibility, regardless of the substance of his claims.
And on the other side, you have the Smith DOJ campaign.
Right. And while the DOJ is naturally constrained in what it can say publicly because of trial rules, Smith is surrounded by people who understand the need to get the word out.
So their campaign relies on the inherent strength of the fact.
Exactly. They are confident that if the details, the proof beyond a reasonable doubt, the Arctic Haze phone records, the documents in the ballroom, if those details get out, they will validate the prosecution's integrity.
And this contrast just encapsulates the entire conflict, doesn't it?
It does. One side is operating on a strategy of narrative suppression and credibility attacks because they're forced into that position by the sheer weight of the factual evidence. The other side is operating on the confidence that the facts, once they're released, will speak for themselves.
And the ultimate verdict on the political strategy is clear, at least according to the source material.
Yes.
The attempt to paint Smith as a bad guy or the investigation as a witch hunt backfired.
It backfired because of the integrity Smith demonstrated under pressure. He is the exact antithesis of the narrative his critics tried to create.
He's not a partisan operative.
No, he's consistently described as a competent and talented civil servant that's doing his job without fear of retribution, without fear or favor.
So he went into this hostile, closed environment and used the opportunity to reinforce the foundation of his case.
The facts and the law. He turned a subpoena that was meant to embarrass him into a forum to declare his absolute confidence in the evidence. The critics tried to focus the discussion on him, but he forced the focus back onto the alleged crimes.
And that professional integrity is what caused the entire secrecy strategy to fail.
It is.
Okay, let's bring this all together for a final synthesis of what we've learned from Jack Smith's high-stakes testimony.
Yeah, we've seen Smith turn a forced appearance into a really strategic declaration. And I think he revealed 3 pivotal points about the current state of these investigations.
First, the conviction standard. Smith is supremely confident. He's claiming his team has already developed evidence that meets the highest bar of proof beyond a reasonable doubt for the Jan 6 scheme.
Right, moving the conversation beyond mere probable cause and into the realm of judicial certainty.
Second, the evidence of criminal execution during the Jan 6 violence.
Substantiated by the data-driven work of the Arctic Haze investigation, using phone records to map out targeted, coordinated calls to members of Congress urging delay during the attack.
And asserting that the former president himself orchestrated the targets.
And third, the stunning level of alleged willful disregard for national security highlighted by the Mar-a-Lago evidence.
Highly classified documents, willfully retained and stored in places just utterly incompatible with security, like a bathroom in a ballroom.
Which serve as proof of criminal intent. The bottom line here is that Smith's entire strategy is built on process and fact. It's focused on ensuring accountability for what he defines as an attack on the bedrock function of the U.S. government, the peaceful transfer of power.
And his consistent professionalism, his use of the highest legal standards, it all acts as this potent shield against the political campaigns launched to discredit him. He turned a potentially damaging congressional interrogation into a victory for the prosecution's narrative, which leaves us with this final thought for you to consider. Given the explicit confirmation of Smith's powerful evidence in both the Jan 6th and Mar-a-Lago cases, evidence that he claims meets the bar for conviction, and the confirmed resistance from certain political elements to make his full testimony and reports public, what does the deliberate suppression of this information suggest about the political fear surrounding the sheer weight of the facts of the case? What happens when a fact-based legal process, led by a prosecutor who insists he would charge a crime regardless of the defendant's political party, collides head-on with a purely narrative-driven political campaign seeking to bury the truth? Something to think about as this high-stakes legal drama unfolds.